Hi everyone, today Progress Over Perfection. We talk about men and relationship with Leslie Doris. Leslie Doris is a licensed marriage and family therapist who's been helping couples since 2002. Let's start interview, and if you like it, share it and subscribe to the channel. Ciao. Hello. Hello Leslie, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you tonight?
Very good. Thank you to be here today. Can you just tell us a little bit about your story and your background, what you study and why you are passionate about this work, and maybe about you? Yes.
Well, if I'm really honest, it started when I was a little kid because I've always watched people. I'm an introvert by nature and I've always watched people and I love puzzles and I've always been fascinated why people do what they do. Neurology was one of my favorite topics um, when I was studying. I love how the brain works. And when I got a little bit older and decided what I wanted to do when I grew up, I became a marriage and family therapist. And that was about 25 years ago. And one of my very, very first clients was a 6-year-old girl who was brought to me because she had anxiety. Well, of course she had anxiety because she was basically the proverbial tug of rope in her parents' her divorce. I mean, they kept pulling her one way and the other. And there was nothing I could do to help this girl. She's 6 years old. She has no power. So that's how I started to work with couples. I figured that if I was going to help this little girl who reminded me a lot of me when I was growing up because my parents got divorced. And there's a fallacy that children will be fine. That's not quite accurate. Children are very, very impacted by the dissolution of their families. And
Mm,
sometimes that has to happen, but in a lot of cases it doesn't. So I got really into learning about what makes relationships work. And so I did regular marriage counseling for a very, very long time. And there are some good things about it and there's some challenging things about it. And then I was
mm,
introduced a while back into the concept of coaching, which
mm,
actually fit very, very well because what's going on with most relationships is lack of knowledge, lack of skills, not any kind of mental or emotional illness. And so one of what I call my Leslieisms is that everybody should have to take a relationship 101 class because all our success is tied to how we interact with other people. And so it doesn't matter what kind of relationship we're in, the basic skills apply. But then when we're talking about marriage, we're talking about the most complicated relationship that exists because it's a combination of every other relationship that exists. And every romantic relationship we've been in before marriage has failed. So how do we make this one work? What are what information do we need to have? And I find that coaching, especially for men, is much, much more helpful because it's action oriented. It's here's the information, here's how you apply it, and then you can be successful. It's a lot that people just don't know. And there is a real fallacy out there that I'm going to upset a lot of people when I say this, but women actually are not better at relationships than men. There is a lack of knowledge straight across the board. And so, and that's one of the things I hope we'll talk about is how those differences come into play and actually how men can claim their rightful space in their relationships.
mm. Look, I agree with you for the simple reason that I really believe that we learn about relationship from our parents.
Yes.
And if our parents, if we're lucky, um, we have good parents, we learn from them, but probably we learn in a time that we weren't ready to listen, so we didn't really look at them like a something good. Then, if we are lucky, we have parents have divorced or have troubles or have problem, and we just relive this situation in our new family. And I agree with you, everybody should have a training before to get involved in a long-term relationship.
Absolutely.
a, a 6 month training course that give you a diploma, but this is another conversation. I like the fact that you uh, talk about coaching and not about counseling. That is actually what is my way to say what I do. Yes, I counsel, but I think people come to you, they're looking for answer and
Hmm.
help.
Hmm.
So if you sit here in the room and just listen to these people arguing and you don't say anything to them, what are they going to learn? Yeah.
Well, right. And the other thing that is very challenging, especially doing couples work, is you have a built-in scapegoat. If my partner would just stop doing this or start doing this other thing, which is great, except the only people we have any control over is ourselves. So when we're focusing outside of ourselves, we're actually not resolving the issue. And it's not about anybody being wrong. It's really about they just don't know what works. Or,
Mm.
it's like if somebody gives you a soccer ball or in the rest of the world, a football. And it's like, what do I do with it? How do you play the game? What are the rules? Right. And you're not going to be very good at it at first. But as you learn and practice and get better, then, your game improves. And it's exactly the same thing with relationships. Many, many years ago, I had a client who popped into my office. Her husband wasn't with her that day. And she comes in and she says, I had an epiphany. And I went, great. What was it? And she said, relationships aren't natural. And I burst out laughing. And I said, well, where'd you get the idea that they were? But everybody has this idea because, falling in love is actually easy. We actually don't have any control over it. It's our neurotransmitters, it's our hormones, it's a bunch of other things that come into play. And everybody thinks that that's reality. That is not reality.
Mm.
That is a period of time where we are actually have temporarily lost our minds. And but everybody thinks that's what we're striving for. And that actually is going to fade. We cannot maintain it. And so when it fades, people have not made the time or taken the effort to create something that is going to really last because they're on that in love high. And so they're not prepared for what happens when the inevitable crash comes. And if they know if they know how things work, then they can come in with a soft landing. They can actually work towards this more stable, um, really loving relationship that is not based on our in love hormones. We really should not be making any decisions when we are in that state, but that's when we make them.
Yeah. Again, I agree with you. um, I, I really like the fact of the Hero Husband project that you build and you do with your clients. Can you talk a little bit about this project and what it's about?
Well, in the years that I worked with couples, one of the things that I found was that almost to a man, the men who were in my offices were good, well-intentioned, loving people. They just were at a complete disadvantage because what I think it's actually very challenging to be a man in today's world. And it's not just enough to be well intentioned. Although I do think that's important, but understanding the dynamics, understanding because there's a lot of really bad information out there. I think that men want to be the heroes in their families, and their wives want them to be. Their wives want them to be um, somebody that they can trust and relax into. And, you know, and When we had the women's movement, which I think was necessary, the problem is that it left men stuck behind. And women now do not need to get married for financial reasons. Women can go out, have their own careers, whatever. And that actually also puts them in their masculine space. And so it's very hard to have two masculines bumping up against each other. And so when the man can really embody his hero, his masculine self, and I'm not talking about being controlling or arrogant or any of that stuff, that's not what I'm talking about, but into their strength, then women, that gives permission for women to soften and walk into their feminine selves, which is really how we're designed. It doesn't mean that doesn't mean that anybody's weaker than or anybody's better than. It just is this yin yang dynamic that exists.
Very, very interesting. I have a question for you, and this is something I've seen in my office as well. Why do you think men often struggle asking help in their marriage?
Well, I think a lot of that is societal. I think that men equate help with weakness. Now, again, if we want to go into the sports world, let's take LeBron James, who's, premier basketball player, right? He has at least 5 coaches. He has people who are watching him, who are helping him, who are working on his diet, working on his conditioning, working on his skills. He's doing that because he wants to be the best. And so it's not it's changing the mind from asking for help to saying, okay, you can see something or you have knowledge that I don't have. And
Mm,
when I get it, I can then become the best.
mm.
And it's the same thing. But men, Mhm. you're going to get me on my soapbox here. Um, Men have been very much dismissed in their relationships. There is this one particular thing that is said over and over again, which literally makes me want to just jump up and down and scream, and that is happy wife, happy life. My job as a man is to make my wife happy. No, that is not your job. And by the way, happy wife, happy life completely wipes out the man in the equation. He is there to do nothing but be a supportive character as opposed to an equal partner. And almost every single man who calls me up and I say, "What do you want?" "I want to make my wife happy." "Great, that is not within your wheelhouse. The only person who can make her happy is her." Now, that's not to say you can't do things to make it more likely that she will choose that, or you can do things that will turn it the other way. But what happens is, and it's really interesting because I just read this today. It was a quote from an author named Jen Hatmaker, who was talking about that her definition of codependency is focusing on other people's feelings, taking responsibility and ownership for other people's feelings. It's like I'm going, "Oh my God, that's what," it's like, and this is what we've turned men into, is like they're
Mm.
not equal partners. They don't know what to do when their wife is unhappy. Because here's the other thing, and women do not understand this. They get really upset when men try to fix things. And what men are actually doing when they see the woman that they love being unhappy or in distress of any kind, they take it as a personal failure. I have not done my job as a man and a partner because she's not happy. Therefore, I have to fix it.
Mm.
And being able to sit with her, being able, and again, I don't think anybody does really well with those harder emotions, the hurt, the frustration, the disappointment, the stuff that none of us want to feel, right?
Mhm.
And we don't like feeling it ourselves. And when we see somebody we love feeling that way, it distresses us. So this is a dynamic that as a society, just in general, we don't do well with that. And men especially struggle with that because they have this, this idea of that they can never be emotional, that they can never be weak, right? That if you're showing these strong emotions, but if you look at like the Super Bowl, or the losing team of the Super Bowl, or there's these big strong guys are in tears because they have left everything they have. They didn't quite do it. Or you take somebody in the military who's lost a buddy, right? And
Yeah.
you cannot tell me that these are not strong men. They are very strong men. They are also emotional, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's contained, right? They're only allowed to do it in these certain circumstances, where women are given permission to be more emotional across the board. Now, sometimes that's to our detriment, right? It's like, oh, yeah, but but just being given that permission to actually feel those things. I mean, men are told, man up, don't be a whip. Oh, you're such a wuss. It's like, stop that. Having emotions is not weak. It's human. We all have them. It's
Mm.
just, are we allowed to express them? And of course, how we express them, when we express them, is important. And that's, and to me, that's what a hero is. It's not that he doesn't feel these things deeply.
Mhm.
He just is not run by them.
Mm.
That makes sense?
Yes, and rap is not run by them and know how to talk about. Uh, I look. I think this is the kind of conversation I was looking for my podcast, because man is something that we don't talk too much. And as a man, I agree with you. I stand on what you say, because I can see how hard, but not only from all partners, but from all female friends, but even from all male friends. It's very difficult for us boys reach out to a friend and say, "Hey, I'm scared." It's a is something that is inside of the culture of not only the country or Australia or the United States, but in all around the world.
Uh-huh.
Men cannot cry, because otherwise if you cry, this weakness can be used against you.
Mhm.
So this is why we have such a high rate of suicidal in teenage boys,
Yeah.
because this tendency of we don't talk about.
And with the way the world is changing,
Mm.
it's I mean, and again, I mean, I go back, it was Gloria Steinem early on in the women's movement. Women need a man like a fish needs a bicycle. It's like, okay, stop that. I mean, it's sort
Mm.
of like, if we flipped this, and said, men don't need women. It's like, we would all be really upset about it. It's like, okay, stop it. We have got to stop
Mm.
this dismissal of each other. I mean, we cannot have a functional world if we are ignoring 50% of the population. We just can't.
Yeah.
And instead of beating them down, my intent is to lift them up. I mean, the whole thing about being a hero is heroes are scared. They're afraid. They don't know, but they're brave. You cannot be brave and courageous if you are not afraid. Otherwise, it's just a
Mm.
walk. Otherwise, it's just another day at the beach, right? It's like, you know, it's like what makes somebody brave is that they act in spite of being afraid,
Mm.
not because they're not afraid. It's just like, you know what? I'm going to face my fear. Brene Brown quotes Teddy Roosevelt's "Man in the Arena," right? It's like, you don't go into these things.
Mm.
It's the old joke about, there are no atheists in foxholes. Well, that's because if you're in a foxhole, if you're under threat for your life, and if you're not afraid, then there's really something wrong with you. But But a lot of the reasons why this works is because not they care more about the people next to them. They care about their buddies, right? They want to be there for their buddies. They want to be there for their families. They're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the people that they care about.
Mm.
That to me, I don't know how much more impressive and heroic that can be.
Learn to show up for yourself first, and make yourself accountable and open to receive, and then you will get back.
Right. And again, it takes courage to hear if somebody is unhappy with something that you're doing, right? It takes a tremendous amount of courage to be open to it, to actually do what I call listening to understand, right? I'm not I'm trying, not that I have to agree with you, and I always make this very clear with my clients.
Hmm.
Understanding does not mean I agree. It just means that that I hear what you're saying and I'm taking it under advisement. Now again, you may have a position, you may want me to do something that is not in alignment with who I am, so the answer is going to be no. And actually, that's truly what women want. And so when men get into this, well, I can't do anything to upset her, then they just become what I was reading in another article about what this person called the tamed man, the one who's afraid of um, disagreement, or I don't like the word conflict because I don't think anybody likes conflict, but they'll fold, they won't take a stand against, in to their partner because she's not going to like it. It's like, now if you're doing something purposely to upset somebody, I say, okay, stop, rethink it. But if you're doing something that is in alignment with who you are, and secondarily somebody else isn't going to like it, by the way, that's called a boundary. And it's important. And, because what happens is if I'm constantly giving away pieces of myself, I cease to exist as a individual. And that's really what causes a lot of the conflict. So when men tell me, happy wife, happy life, it's like when men go down that road, women actually lose respect for them.
Yeah, I totally look.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen.
So it's like, so my goal is like, okay, you take a gentle stand. You don't have you don't have to be mean, controlling, aggressive. It's just you are consistent and you are clear that no, this is not, I'm not going down this road. This is not okay. We need to
Mm,
talk about this.
mhm, mm. Um, very fascinating conversation. Can you tell me a little bit about what do you think is changed since in the last 10 years between couples? What is the dynamic? What is changed? Uh, my perspective, I think the female movement was something that we need, and we must keep working on that and fight for that, because anyway, is not we're not at the end of that. At the same time, I understand there is some dynamics, especially in the family, that can be sometimes misunderstood, and maybe in some way someone can get some privilege than the other one. But anyway, can I ask you, from your perspective, from your work, from the work that you do with couples, what are the dynamic you see is change between in the last 20 years, for example, that you start to work long, long before me, so you have much more experience on that. What has changed from 20 years ago until today?
Well, I think that women have gotten more, but use the word privileged in relationships. Now, again, I don't necessarily think that what women are asking for is unreasonable. I do think that having a true partner is really what's desired. What's missing is, what does that mean? Right? Because if we actually have a true partnership, and this is one of the things that makes marriage so difficult and so challenging, is because it is the only intimate relationship that that we live with somebody where our lives are intertwined, where we are truly equals. Otherwise, it's parent, child, child, parent, older sibling, younger sibling. I mean, this is the only one where we are truly equals, which means we each have the same amount of influence, right? And what happens is it shifts, right? Right now, there's a lot um, of women are much clearer, sort of, about what they want. I shouldn't say that. They think they're clearer,
Mm.
um, but and what we need to do is we need to invite men, because what happens is men are getting put down a lot. They're blamed for all kinds of things. And, men have ownership and responsibility. So do women. And
Uh-huh.
again, I have to be willing to take account of what I am doing, right? I have learned these behaviors. My partner has learned their behaviors. How are we going to negotiate to a situation where we both feel good? Because in my view, you need to be winning, your partner needs to be winning, and the marriage needs to be winning. If any of those are losing, everything's lost. It's all three or it's none, right? And if somebody can't express themselves, if somebody can't be heard, if somebody can't be seen and valued, we do not have a partnership. I don't know what we have, something else, right? And it's hard because we don't know how to do that. We don't know. I mean, if, you know, just even the way we start conversations. Why did you? Shot across the bow, we're headed towards a fight. Two words we should never use in the same sentence, why and you. In fact, we shouldn't use those two words at all. I mean, I tell my clients, don't use the word you unless it's I love you, you're wonderful, I'm glad you're in my life. Then please use the word you to your heart's content. But if you're talking about a situation, that word is very, very damaging. It is almost guaranteed to get a defensive response. And if I'm defensive, I'm not listening.
So you say the why you together, the why you did that.
Hmm.
So what do you think people should use?
Well, this is where I'm sure you're familiar with I statements. And an I statement is not, I think you're an idiot. That is not an I statement.
Yeah.
You can put I's in
Uh,
there. An I statement means I'm owning my own part. Right. Last night or this morning, when I came down and found dishes in the sink, it really upset me. No you is anywhere. The you may even be implied. You left
mm,
dishes in the sink, but I didn't say, why did you leave dishes in the sink? It's like, I'm sharing
mm.
this instance
Yeah.
results in this experience for me. Can we talk about it? Right. But if I immediately start with, I've asked 20 million times, why are you still leaving dishes in the sink? Whoa. And by the way, once, a colleague of mine, I met him because he wrote a blog post about he got divorced because he left dishes in the sink. And I went, yeah, that's not the reason why you got divorced.
No.
It's what the dishes stood for.
Yeah.
But, but
Yeah.
again, it's, how we even approach things. And when we're upset, that is the worst time to open our mouths because we are out of control. It's not going to go well.
Yeah.
And and then we spiral. I'm
Mm.
upset. I say something to you that gets you upset, and we just do this.
Yeah. Then I think you'll be familiar with the four horsemen. No, the
Oh, yeah.
criticism, contempt, all these things. Yeah, yeah. Is that four things. If everybody can understand and practice that, I think when I start to study the Gottmans,
Hmm.
I came across with these I statement things and the understanding, the be aware about these four factors. I say, wow, all my relationship changed
Mhm.
because I changed how to talk with people. So, and I put the effort to be gentle, to be,
Mhm. Mhm.
not pushing or not inquisitive, but not only with my partner,
Mhm.
but even with my friend, colleagues, and
Mhm.
people around me.
Mhm.
So, and my relationship changed around me. And now I learned actually to listen better because you ask better questions, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you come up and you make such a good point. By
Mm,
you doing something different,
yeah.
all of your relationships changed. And this is what people don't understand. It's like, I need no, you don't need your partner to do anything different. Because when you do it differently, when you do it better, they can't do the old way.
Mhm,
And you're actually modeling the behavior, not just, I mean, and if we have kids, this is also the way we need to be talking to our kids, right? And
mm,
we're modeling the behaviors for them, which means then we're
mm,
going to be changing generations,
yeah.
not just the immediate thing. Because, but this is the thing. we, Human beings, whether we want to believe it or not, are run by our emotions. And the question is, am I going to be the master of my emotions, or am I going to let my emotions master me? And it's not having the emotions, because we can't do that. It's, how do I want to be in this situation right now? Do I want to be angry? Do I want to be gentle? Do I want to be hurt? Do I want to be loving? And those are choices I get to make. But if we let our primal brain run the show, then we are going to probably do damage.
Mm,
And so the Gottmans, I don't know what we're going to do when they're not around anymore. Heaven help us. But but their whole, and again, their whole thing, is really very clear. And
mm,
you watch the progression of relationships. You're asking me what's changed, and it's like, people don't realize that there are developmental stages of relationships, just like there's developmental stages of humanity, right?
of,
And and we fall in love. That's usually the first stage, right? We have this wonderful experience, then we become a couple. And then one of my colleagues calls the next stage disillusionment. It's like the rose-colored glasses come off. I start to see the things that my partner is doing that annoy me or whatever. And by the way, that's still about me. If I'm annoyed about something, that's about me, not necessarily about what my partner's doing. Um, and it's like, and how do we make it through that disillusionment stage? How do we really come to accept this other person, flaws and all, hoping also that they will accept me, flaws and all, because none of us are perfect. We all have our idiosyncrasies and weird little habits and annoying behaviors and
mhm,
whatever. Um, but when we can come to each other and say, hey, this is something that I'm really struggling with. Can we talk about a different way to do it?
mm, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm not
Yeah.
blaming you. I'm owning my own stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's the approach is critical. Timing is critical. How we start a conversation is critical. And I think most people, one, either don't know that, or two, have not mastered it yet.
Mm. I absolutely connect with what you say. Many times with my clients, I ask them to be curious about what trigger your partner. Not just wait for the partner to come that maybe is upset because you left the toothpaste open, no? And what make upset about that thing. So
Right.
be curious and ask, what make you so upset this one? Or what is the reason about the toothpaste open that lead you to be so upset? Can you tell me a little bit more
Right.
so
Right.
I can understand your experience? In this way, I think the partner can actually understand where the next is coming from, correct?
Mhm.
Be curious and be open to talk about situation, even is can be hard sometimes.
Well, I mean, and the thing that is important to understand is that what matters to my partner may really not matter to me, right? I
Huh,
may not really care about it. So, but have to be careful not to put my feelings onto my partner, right? As a like you said, curiosity is one of my you know, my two favorite words when I work with my clients. Curiosity and confusion, right?
yeah,
Help me understand. I'm confused. Or hey, I'm really curious. Tell me more about this, right? Those are invitations to have a conversation.
yeah,
And we need, and whatever the first answer we get is going to be the surface level answer, and we need to go deeper. It's like, okay, so what makes that important? Or okay, if that were to happen, what would that mean? Right. And so we're actually, because most of us don't want to go down to those deeper places. That's, that's vulnerability. I'm telling somebody where, where you can hurt me and all this other stuff. And that's also where we build intimacy, right? When
yeah.
I can truly understand, um, you know, for years I had put this uh issue. I told my husband, you could have a motorcycle or you could have me. You could not have both. It was like, and then several years later, after our kids were a little bit older, I had a session and I thought, okay, this is what you're doing to your husband. You need to go back. So I took that restriction off, thinking that he would honor my feelings about it, but he ended up getting a motorcycle. But I also put conditions on it. And and it was because, I have this thing. I wasn't concerned about him doing something silly. I was concerned about people not knowing he was there, right? Because when I was a little kid, some good friends of my parents had a motorcycle and one of them was killed and the other one was seriously injured. And that, I mean, I didn't even know them that well, but it was an impact on me. And
Of
so
course,
it impacted how I felt, and
of
so it's
course.
like we have to be willing to go and say, well, where did this come from? And why do you feel so strongly about this? And not from a place of judgment, but from a place of, I really want to know you better. I'm really wanting to know what is it about this,
Mhm.
that is problematic for you, because for me, it's not a problem.
Yeah,
But we're
absolutely,
different. We're
absolutely.
not going to respond the same way to the same things. We're just
Mm,
not.
mm. What are the signs for men that silently struggle in relationship?
Well, I think one of the ways is pulling back, right? In trying to protect themselves, they get quiet, or they get um sometimes they will also get very into something, whether they could spend a lot more time at work, or they could be doing, getting very involved in hobbies where they're starting to spend less and less time with their partners. um it's different. It can show up very, very differently. um but, one of the things that I think is a key for everybody, and I'm not even sure that people would see it as a warning sign. I think people think of it as just normal behavior, is when we just stay at the superficial. I mean, there's, yeah, one of the things that I think is a warning sign for a man, if he ever has this thought, is if he says to himself, "Well, it's not that bad. It's not great, but it's not that bad."
Mm,
That's a warning sign. um, because it means something's missing. I was heartbroken a few months ago. I got this email from somebody who was distressed because he'd been in a sexless marriage for 50 years, and he says, it's been a sexless marriage for 50 years and she seems to be okay with it. And my head, I went, you think? I mean, it's like, I'm going, why is this okay? Right? Um, I mean, and and again, that's a whole dynamic that I think is fairly common. I think the way that it's tried people try to resolve it doesn't work because focusing on the end result of just more sex is not going to solve the problem. Um, because you know, if it were that simple, you'd be having sex, right? There's something else going on, but it's the fear of opening that door. It's the
Mm,
fear of really exploring that. And again, she has her own, I mean, we all have accountability for what our relationships look like, right? I am putting something in, the other person's putting something in, we're creating this third thing. If I don't like what this third thing is, I need to look at what am I putting in the pipeline, right? And it's not about blame. I mean, I so want people to understand it is not about blame. It is about understanding. It's about it's about being intentional. And when we get scared, we back off. We try to protect ourselves. And that can show up in many different ways. It can show up by shutting down. It can show up by acting out. It can show up in a bunch of different ways. But the place I have to go is, what am I afraid of? And if that were to happen, what would it mean? And, it's like I am a pro marriage coach, right? I don't think all marriages should be saved, but I think most of them could be if people
mm,
understood. But
yeah.
fear gets in the way. I'm scared of hearing something. Okay. And again, yeah, I don't want to hear that I'm not being a good partner. I don't, but my relationship requires that I do. Going back to, the athletes, right? If
Mm,
somebody is somehow missing all their baskets, what am I doing wrong? Right? Something has changed. I mean, I could pretend that nothing's changed, right? And I keep losing games, but that's not going to help me, right? I need the information. Somebody else can look and go, hey, did you know you're leaning to your left? Oh, okay, thank you, right? It's, this idea that going to a professional is punishment, that
mm,
somehow you're bad or broken.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
no, I want to be the best. I want somebody to see what I can't see, right? And and sometimes they need a third person to point out maybe what their partner has been saying or what they've been trying to say, but because of that emotional connection, they can't hear it where somebody from the outside can say, "Well, just curious, why don't you try it this way and see how that works?"
Mm,
You
yeah.
know, it's like, okay. But it has to be, I mean, the reason why I like coaching is because it is about giving people action steps. It's not, I mean, insight is great, but insight without knowing what to do with it actually can be incredibly frustrating.
Yes. Especially if they come to us and they don't know how to do the thing. Because if they knew it, they wouldn't come to us.
Yeah.
So, and they may be looking for another way to do the things that they haven't thought about. So a third person can see from outside and say, I've seen this one. Have you thought about this point?
Mhm.
And they can say, wow, yeah, we haven't. So that is for me is a big thing. When people understand that counseling or coaching or therapy is not different than you go to the doctor if you're sick,
Mhm.
or if you go to the PT if you need to go lose weight and make muscles.
Right.
There's no difference. Again, I think was again the Gottman say if you work 20 minutes a day on your marriage, you'll be fantastic.
Well,
Which
I, I, I mean, and it truly is.
yeah, it really is.
That I mean,
Yes.
it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, and this is one of those things where if we're not spending time together, then of course we're going to lose connection.
Of course.
I mean, we could be living in the same house, but that doesn't mean that we're really, interested in what the other person is doing. I mean, and you were talking about warning signs, and one of the signs is if I have the thought we're more like roommates. Okay, that's a
Mm.
problem. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to be more than roommates, I mean, there's some people I'm sure that's fine, but if that's not what you want, and it's like because we don't continue the behaviors that we start because life gets in the way. We take our focus off, but I call it the death of a thousand cuts. Most relationships don't end with some big explosive thing. I mean, even affairs are a symptom. They are, they become the problem, but they're usually the symptom because I'm unhappy over here, so I'm going over there. Well, you
Yeah.
can't solve here by going there. But I mean, but again, I understand it. It's, you know, if I'm feeling lonely in my marriage and suddenly somebody's paying attention to me, that's very attractive, right? It's like I'm starving, somebody's feeding me, I'm going where the food is.
Yeah.
You can't it's I don't we don't blame people, but it's not it won't work. And if you can't have an open conversation with your spouse, that's a warning sign. If I'm afraid to have a if I'm keeping things to myself, I mean, and again, we don't have to spew every single thought we have to our partners 24 hours a day. That would be annoying. But there are things that they need to know. And I mean, and these conversations, we have lots of tough conversations throughout our lives. We have lots of tough conversations with our partners. And if we can't have them successfully, it's not we're going to have a problem, right? And knowing how to have those tough conversations, um that's a skill.
Mhm. A relationship is a skill.
Yeah.
It's something that you learn.
Mhm.
So there's this thing that we should know how to do it from who knows why. Um, Women do a little bit better because you are more open to talk and build group and to reach to each other. I think in that way we can learn from you, ladies. But it's my point of view, and I can see my wife does much better than me with friendship. She has much more friends. I'm become getting old. I'm becoming like a bear in the cave. No, I start to I start to choose my friends in a different way, and I really love being myself. So
And
yeah,
I do think that in some ways women do have much more freedom in that way. I do think that now again, I do think women have to be very careful about the friends that they choose
yeah, yeah,
because divorce is contagious. If I'm, and if we just get together, and I mean, because I remember I remember when, I was becoming a therapist, people going, "Oh, I can't wait till you get your license." I said, "No, no." I said, "I can be your friend or I can be your therapist. I cannot be both." Because I said, "Your friend, you're going to want me to be on your side, and the therapist is going to say to you, and your part in this was what?" It's
yeah,
like, so you need people who will support you, but also hold you accountable. And that's actually what our spouses should be doing. They should be
yeah,
supporting of us, but also holding us accountable and vice versa. It's like if I'm doing something harmful to my marriage, I need to be called on the carpet for that. It's like that this is not working. And it
absolutely.
doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It
Mm.
may mean I just don't know something, or it may mean I'm trying to fix something in an unproductive way,
Mhm.
because we only can do what we know.
Mm. Yes. What advice would you give to men who feel stuck between wanting to be strong and also need support?
Um, I actually do. I actually believe that finding somebody that they can actually talk to about that, whether it's a good friend, whether it's a religious person, whether it's a professional like we are, I know a lot of men who belong to healthy men's groups, because there are some unhealthy ones out there, but where it really is about somebody. There's I don't know if you've ever heard of Terry Real. He's a colleague of mine, and he does something called relational life therapy, and he's just fantastic. But he talks about loving regard. I hold you in loving regard. I don't blame you. I mean, I may ask questions. I may ask some really tough questions, but we do, like I said, we do what we know. We have these coping mechanisms. We have these coping skills that we developed a long time ago that are still always going to be present. And we just have to understand what they are and come and make different decisions. Now that we are adults, we have more power, we have more autonomy to make different decisions, although those old pathways are still there. And they stop serving us. And am I willing to learn and grow? And this is the thing, growth is uncomfortable. you know doing learning something new. I mean, the first time, I mean, I don't remember if you remember the first time you got into a car to drive, you were probably terrified. Now we get in the car and don't even think about it because we've just done it so often. But the first time we do something, it's not going to go well. you know um we have to work at it. We have to figure out, oh, this, I can't do it this way. And that's not a problem. It just is like, I mean, and we're just different. And I need to learn how to do it. And again, when I work with my clients, it's like, I've got this toolbox, right? Here's the tool, right? We can adjust it to fit you, right? It's like a bicycle. We need to adjust you. We need to adjust it so it fits you, right? It's still a bicycle. All the
Mhm.
all the things, the components are the same. It's just now fit to you. And so it's not a one size fits all, but the the skills are the same. The skills are universal. And again, the challenges are universal. Right? I mean, so many people have come to me. You've probably never heard this in the back of my mind going, yeah, there's, I mean, now, now to be fair, there have been some things that I have been, it's like, okay, you are the first person to tell me this, but most of it isn't new. Right? And, and it's not to dismiss them because, of course, it's very painful for them and it's very personal for them. But if people, I mean, this is the thing about marriage. You were talking about this a little bit earlier. And when we're parents, those babies do not come with manuals. We have, I mean, even though parenting is quote unquote natural, yeah,
Good
um,
luck.
we still we have to learn. And
Oh,
but see, the thing with parenting is nobody thinks anything of getting on the phone to their friend or their neighbor or whatever, going, how did you get them to sleep? How did you potty train them? We don't do that with marriage. Marriage is like this black box. We
mm,
close the door.
yeah,
We have the beautiful ceremony. We
yeah.
actually, in many ceremonies, ask the people who are present, will you support this couple? Most people say yes. But then the couple goes behind closed doors, and the next time we see them, we're in A Marriage Story or The War of the Roses. I mean, it's like, because everybody thinks everybody else is doing it better. No, they're
Yeah,
not. I
yeah, no, no,
mean, they're having all the
no,
same struggles.
yeah.
It's like, okay, we're all learning how to do this together. And if we had the community, if we had people that we trusted to say, hey, this is going on. Here's my thoughts about it. Here's what I'm being told. Help me figure this out. Sure, no problem. Let's dig into this and see what's going on.
Mm, mm. Leslie, I will spend another 6 hours with you, okay? Because I love the way that you speak about relationship. I love the passion that you put on this. I'm going to ask you a very one tool that just one tool that men can improve today in the to make better relationship. One
Ooh,
tool only
one tool only. Oh boy.
to start to work with. One tool.
um, I really think that the best thing they can learn to do is learning to listen to understand.
Mm,
You know, because there's a quote, and I really wish I could remember who said it, and I really need to write it down about feeling heard is as close to feeling loved that for most people there is no difference.
mm,
So when your wife feels like she is being heard, not agreed, you don't have to agree with her, right? But really being heard and understood, that really opens her heart.
mm.
So I think if I had to give one, that would be it. I've got zillions more, but we'll start with that one.
This is, I think, the best of the advice and tool you everybody should
Mhm.
learn in any kind of relationship. Leslie, thank you so much. If someone want to work with you, want to read your book, I know that you have a book, Blueprint for a Lasting Marriage, and then you have another one, correct?
Yes.
Where they can find you, and your website and your contact.
Yeah, they can find me at the herohusbandproject.com, theherohusbandproject.com, all one word. They can also Google me, but my name is very weird, so people it's no E on the end of Leslie, and Dory's is a weird name, but I'm
Mhm.
probably the only one in the world, so if you Googled me, you'll find me. And and they can reach me at coach at theherohusbandproject.com. And I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on all the social media sites. So
All around. Thank you so much, Leslie. Listeners, reach out, Leslie, if you in the United States, if you are in North Carolina, if you want to learn about buy the book. She is fantastic, and the video very very useful. And this is why I want to have a chat with her. I think is very interesting, and the way she speak. Um, I think is the way that we should learn about relationship. Thank you so much, Leslie. See you next time.